Hi everyone, I'm Catherine, aka the High Heeled Gamer, and welcome to the Late Night Nerd Show. I'm super excited to have a returning guest because they have more books and more goodies for us to discuss, which I'm super excited about. So let's bring aboard Chris from C.R.I.T. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am good. It's a Friday afternoon for me, or evening for me right now. See, that's how busy I've been.
You don't even know where you're at and what's happening.
Nope, nope. It's just always been crazy. I'm just glad the week's over.
Yeah, amen to that because I'm ready to sleep in. Like that's
Yes,
how.
yeah, I'm ready to go play some D&D and enjoy the weekend.
Yeah. So speaking of D&D, since the last time we talked, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to. You've been a busy man, so
Yes. So we released book 5, which is the 6th issue in the series. 0 through 5 all went on Kickstarter. May, I believe it was like March or May, one of those two M months, and we just fulfilled that about a month and a half ago. Got that out to everybody. The feedback we got was great. Very happy because that was such a big book. The one issue alone was 60 pages, and we did the trade paperback with that. We did with the figure, like the statue that the caliber statue that went with that, collector cards, and the all the foil covers that went with it. I mean, there was just a stack. I had somebody send me an email, and they're like, "Wow, like this was a lot more than I anticipated." So that's good. I'm glad when people get more than what they expected.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
we,
for
we
sure.
fulfilled that, and I've been just plugging along at book 6. So
Nice, nice. And you've been doing the con scene too a little bit here and there.
yep, staying busy there. I think we did four cons this year,
Oh wow.
and we have 2 more coming up. Queen City Con, the weekend of the 21st of October, and then the following weekend we'll be in Baltimore, hanging out with everybody. So
With me.
yep, yep, we'll be up there. The whole SSB is going to be there. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like super excited for Baltimore Comic Con. I didn't even know like everybody was gonna be there. So when everybody started like sending me like messages like, "Oh my God, we're gonna be there too. We're gonna be there too." I was like super excited. I know we've met in person, but it's just cool to have
Mhm.
everyone there. It'll be a nice little fun party. So that's gonna be exciting on my end as well. So
You can
uh,
thank Dan from Bigfoot Knows Karate and Dennis. You know Dennis,
yeah.
Celestial Knight. They put that whole thing together because they had been talking about doing a con together, and then Dennis lives near me and you, and Dennis was like, hey, do you want to go to Baltimore? And so we booked Baltimore, and then everybody else lives up near there, so we're like, hey, and then Drew is, I believe, out in Indiana or Illinois, and we were like, Drew, why
Okay.
don't you come too? So he came, and there's D is coming from California, so we got people from all over the country coming to that con.
Yeah. Well, I thought Drew was out in Texas with Dan.
No,
I
no, I
didn't
think
know.
it's Indiana or Illinois, one of those I states.
Nice, nice. I love it. I love it. But yeah, so I'm a huge fan of Bigfoot Knows Karate, and I'm pretty sure it was Dan that was like, "Hey, are you going to Baltimore Comic Con?" And I was like, "No, I've never been. I don't like." He was like, "Why don't you apply?" And I was like, "You know what? Why not?" And he was like, "Well, I'm gonna be there," and I had already missed my opportunity to meet Dan. Because I was sick, I had COVID, and I couldn't go. I can't even remember what convention was happening.
I thought it was
Um,
Delaware.
yeah, something. I forget which one, because I slept through the whole like all my COVID, I slept it off. But so when I did get approved for Baltimore, and then like I started seeing everybody was coming, like even your wife was
Mm-hmm.
like so nice. She's like, "Oh my God, you're gonna be there too." I'm like, "Yes." And like she was like, "We're gonna party it up." I'm like, I'm here for it. So I'm super excited that we will get to hang out. Take lots of selfies because if no selfies, it never happened, right?
Yeah, I don't know if Baltimore. Well, actually, I know Baltimore pretty well, and Baltimore will probably be as crazy as your Charlotte experience. So.
Yes. That's exactly what I need. I need the same Charlotte experience that I had, but in
Lots of
Baltimore. So that way
gunfire.
we can have stories, like,
Yeah,
like We'll have great, like, remember when stories.
Exactly. Remember when?
Remember
Gotta love
when
those.
Baltimore 2022? That'll be
That time
great.
we all met up and almost died.
That'll be fantastic. That'll be
Great
a great
times. Yeah, great
comic.
times.
You know, that'll be a great comic for you to create,
Oh god,
like,
yeah. That'd
our
be fun.
adventures in Baltimore, you know?
Yep.
Not that you don't already have enough comics that you're creating,
Yeah.
because
We
you're
released
really
our second, so we have a coinciding story that goes along with Crit that was at the back of book 5. Mr. Wizard and Friends. I was really excited to get that going. That one, that's been like a brainchild slash. It's an old D&D campaign, and I've always thought about doing something with it since Crit came about, but I
Mhm.
didn't know what to do with it because it's a shorter story.
Oh,
Um, yeah, we've been playing Crit for 4 years. I think we played that game maybe a year.
got it.
And it was a different group of guys, except for the guy that plays Caliber is Mr. Wizard. He's always Mr. Personality, uh, which is funny because when you meet him, he's quiet. But so we had played that campaign, and it was way off the rails. It literally ended with a WWE like style wrestling match at the pit of hell,
Oh, wow.
and Randy Savage came up out of hell and suplexed the devil, who is Justin Bieber, and into hell to close the portal to hell. And that was the end of the entire story. That's what I read.
Wow.
Yeah. So um, the whole plot was, long ago, different groups of gods would rule the earth depending on who had the most influence. And right now, the only people who like the gods, because even Christianity was dying out in this world because humans were no longer worshiping gods; they were worshiping celebrities and themselves, thanks to Hollywood and social media. So every religion, like these gods, were being pushed out of the like Earth plane, and the only way they could gain influence here was by possessing these different people. They couldn't bring their physical bodies here, so they possessed people. Like John Cena was the god of war, Beyonce was like the god of love, and then Justin Bieber became the devil, Hades, and they used the influence those people had to kind of take over the world. And I think Poseidon was like Obama at the time because this was during Obama's presidency and he was very popular. So I was like, well, hey, he could be taken over too. And so they had all these different, like very popular figures that they had inhabited. And they pretty much drove the world into ruin because all they cared about was themselves and gaining more and more popularity and more power. And the where Mr. Wizard and Friends picks up is a group of rebels or whatever came about, and a different group of gods didn't like the idea that the Greek gods were doing this, so they were going to instead of taking over bodies, they were imbuing people with their powers and limited capacity to fight against these godlike beings. And it just went off the rails from there. I think the Kanye West also leads the rebel faction because Kim Kardashian was taken over by a god too. So he's like really angry that his wife was inhabited, and so he becomes the leader of the rebels. But the thing is, this rebel faction is so divided they've never met everybody, and so in like the first issue, they attack the building that they think that Kanye is being held up in, because Kanye, who's my character, I didn't do a good enough of a job
Did you?
detailing everything to them. And I was like, hey, so you have this base and you have to go and you have to infiltrate this base because that's your base. You got and I sent them this message, and the message was very cryptic. So they just attack the base instead of just go there and knock
Oh,
on the front
no.
door. And like I described the scene to them, and I was like, so what do you guys do? And they're like, okay, well, I'm going to take mustard gas and throw it down this hallway to try and knock everybody out and kill anybody that would be a threat. And then I'm going to post up over here as a sniper, and I'm just going to snipe people off the top of the building. And I'm like, you guys haven't even done a threat analysis to know if they're. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and let this play out. and they're blowing holes in the walls and just killing
Oh my
everybody.
god.
And then they come across Kanye, and he's like, "This was your base, and those were your guards, and you just killed them all." So
Oh my
that's the
gosh.
first book. The first 4 pages. I've been able to consolidate most of those sessions down to about 4 to 5 pages.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, yeah. That
Wow.
if you think Crit gets off the rails, that game quickly went off the rails. I think
Yeah.
by the third session, they were parachuting out of a helicopter in white tuxes, and they made it their mission to become more popular than the gods themselves.
Oh god.
So they invested all of their time and money into becoming bigger than life. So they created their own like TV shows and their own magazines, and just made their own popularity up
Oh,
and use that to create an argument with the gods, and then wind up like distracting them and killing them like hitman style. um but yeah, it was
wow.
nuts.
How long does one of those sessions last? Or does it vary depending on what's going on in those sessions?
Most of my game Crit is about 4 to 6 hours at a time.
Okay. Wow.
That book is so how that one plays out is I record every session. We're about 46 hours.
Okay.
um and then when I go into making the comic book, I listen to the session. So I'll listen to it when I'm in the car. I'll listen to it at work. I'll listen to it when I'm at the gym. I just have it playing in my headphones, and I'm getting an idea and like remembering what the flow of this game was. And then I'll sit down with my tablet and I'll storyboard it.
Okay.
I'll get an idea of what everything was, what the flow is supposed to be, and I send the storyboards over to the guys just to get their perspective on it and make sure everything makes sense. Sometimes we'll change some small details. Most of, I'd say 90% of what's in the book really happens at the table.
I was getting ready to ask how much of it actually gets put in and how much ends up on the cutting room floor, so I'm glad you said that.
It's not much that gets left. It's the stuff that would be confusing because again, it's D&D and somebody always wants to go down this hallway that leads to nothing, you know?
That's me. Sam, I'm so sorry that would that's I'm just letting you know if we ever
No,
play
no, it's
D&D,
fine.
that's me.
It's fun in game because it gives the character that freedom to go down that hallway. But for a reader, especially because you have a broad range in your reader base,
Mhm.
having that empty hallway is going to only be entertaining for a few people. Other
Yeah.
people are like, "Why is this even here?" This takes away from, you
Yeah.
know, we
That
have
makes sense. Yeah.
so we leave out some of those things that really don't go anywhere or create unneeded questions. Um, my theory, and Brad, who also helps me with a lot of the writing, if it doesn't need to be told, we don't tell it. We only tell
Okay.
the story that really needs to be told. um, the stuff that doesn't need to be told either winds up as an inside joke. So like in the next book there's an inside joke about Brad wanting a coffee cannon on the truck because they have a coffee truck. And in book 5 we see them separate from their employer and become this private entity. In book 6 they are small business owners and their business is a coffee shop, but they've made mobile by using their you know their what like hero wagon or hero van, like Ninja Turtles. Um, and they take it on the road. They turn it into like a food truck,
Wow.
and they're selling coffee, and that's their deal because they need to make money to be able to do what they need to do. So they're selling coffee. Problem is, half the team doesn't really want to do it, and they're forced into it. So that doesn't really work well. And then the other half of the team is sitting here trying to make ends meet and trying to make money. Meanwhile, there's a chaos happening in the city that they have to go help with. So who do they leave to run the truck? Well, they leave the cat. Um,
I was not ready for you to say that.
yeah, so we have a talking cat, for those of you that don't know.
That's great. That's great.
So he gets to run the coffee truck while they go off and do their heroing stuff. And it just snowballs from there. It's that's why it's called caffeinated chaos.
I love it. I think it helps that you have so many people, or I shouldn't say like there's like 100 of you guys, but there's enough creative minds to help, get those
Mhm.
ideas rolling and have that material. So you said you listen to it kind of like a podcast at this point,
Mhm.
right? So, and
Yeah,
then you
very
pull
very
from there.
long podcast where the outcome.
Now, how many other people are listening with you? Are you the only one
I'm the only
listening?
one. I'll chop up the audio sometimes and send it to everybody. Um, Mainly if I want to, like, if I want to make sure the story flows with that dialogue, or sometimes because they don't believe me that the dialogue actually exists. They're like, we didn't say that. It went because it's like that. You know, Luke, I am your father. You know, we all heard Luke, I
Mhm.
am your father.
Yeah.
The line isn't Luke, I
Uh,
am your father.
yeah.
So sometimes I have to remind them that's not how that went, and that's not what you said. Now, during the writing process, if it makes more sense for it to be what they want, then yeah,
Mhm.
we can make those adjustments.
Oh, okay.
But if it's hilarious the way it actually went, and I want to keep that,
Stay.
then it's going to stay. Unless they can give
It's
me a good
spoken.
reason as to why, you know, like, hey, that can't happen because of this. It is a group of friends with similar personalities and similar, um, senses of humor. So I do take into account sometimes jokes that we would find funny. We leave at our table, you know, um, because you don't know who's going to read your book. And
True.
um, I want to make sure that we don't alienate anybody or turn anybody off by just some random joke that we might find funny. We're a bunch of 35 to 45-year-old men, and there's certain things we might find funny that other people don't, and we know this. So some jokes get cut. Um, in the last book, there were like 3 different lines that I was like, "Are we really gonna put this in there?" And if you read it, you probably know which one. I was like, "Are we keeping this?" Yep, we're keeping it. Are you sure? Yes, we're gonna keep that. Okay, all right.
That's awesome.
Um, you know, just because you never know what somebody's sensitivity level is,
Yeah.
and there's 2 lines in book 5 where I looked at Terrell and I was like, "Are we keeping this?" He's like, "Yeah. If anybody has a problem, they can ask me about it." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, it's on you, buddy."
It's like, "Can I get that in writing,
Yep.
please? Thank you."
He's like, "I'll jump on a live right now and I'll tell people I said
Wow.
that," because the lines are actually what he said. They came directly from the recording,
Oh, okay, okay.
and because that's what I said was like, "Hey, there's some spicy dialogue here. Do we want to keep this?" And they were like, because they were both at work, and they're like, "We're listening to this at work, rolling right now. This is staying. This is gold." And I was like, "Yeah, but like that teeters that line." And they're
Yeah,
like, "Well, we said it, and we'll go to bat for what we said, and it's funny." And if no one should be really offended because it wasn't like offensive jokes,
okay.
but it was just a little, from me, it was a little bit on the border.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so there's just the one line where Caliber's yelling at calling one of the guards a racist for pulling a gun on them because Boulder's black,
Yeah,
and that caught a few people off guard. They were like, "You put that in the book?" I'm like, "They said it. Like Caliber really says that to the guard, and that's how he throws the guard off
yeah.
because I'm the guard in real life."
Oh,
And this was in 2019, 2020. So that was a very sensitive subject,
yep.
and so they used that against me as the DM because I was like, hey, I don't even know what to say to that. Like I have no comeback. I'm
Yeah,
holding a gun. He's the only one not in a mask. I don't know what everybody else's races are, in game, and they start calling the guard a racist, and I was like, are we keeping that in? Like I know that it can be funny, but oh
yeah.
yeah, that's how we threw that guard off. That's how
Wow.
we got that um, deception check on him because Caliber and Boulder they play off each other for deception.
Oh,
Their
okay.
nickname later on is the Deceptipals, and so they like Boulder will use because in real life Brad's a cop, so
Oh,
he'll use Brad being a cop as a way to like get to somebody. Like they bounce off each other the entire time, and they're both different alignments, so they'll use each other just to get at somebody. They play good cop bad cop all the time,
God.
um, and so yeah, they were like, nope, we're keeping the line. And there was like 2 other lines right after that, and I'm like, and they were like food related too. And I was like, guys, okay, all right. I mean, hey, and they're funny, and then like I said, they're not nothing racy.
Yeah, yeah.
You never know who's reading your book, and they were like, come on, this was years ago, and it was funny, and No one's gonna have a problem. And I was like, okay, all right, we'll leave it. You guys said it. I can't argue. It's you know, it
I
is what
like
it is.
that you're open like that, you know, that you do put it out there, but at the end there and if they have that compelling argument or, you know, statement that you're like, "Okay, I hear
Yeah,
you. We'll do it like this." I like that. I like the teamwork dynamic of it all. Probably helps it go a little smoother too, doesn't
it
it?
does. And I like the dynamic that it is based off the game and things that we really do and say. And I when you know, I found it funny. You know, I find the whole scene hilarious the way they throw the guard off, and then the guard has to answer to, like, they have to call their boss to get permission to do something, and the guy's like, "Why are they even in here?" And he's like, "Well, he called me a racist, and I don't want to cause any more problems," you know. And so it's like this big thing, and it's real, and the whole scene just plays out so stupid and funny because of that one line,
Mhm.
and it flows so well. And I was like, so I get why we keep it. Yeah, you know, I want it to be that organic, fun, dumb, you know, yeah, situation. And so, yeah, I'm good for if they bring up a good point. At the same time, you know, I'll argue my point sometimes. Like, this line needs to be there. Um, like Bones says a line in there at the towards the end. Save your pity for the weak. And see, Bones doesn't really talk as much as he did in that book.
Okay.
Um, he did a bit, but I called Ryan, who is Bones in real life, and I said, "Hey, I know you don't really talk much." I was like, "But we don't really bring up why." And I said, "I'd like to have Bones in this issue be a little bit more talkative because he hits there's a very dark moment for him in the book, and a lot of weight is placed on his shoulders, like emotionally and mentally." I said, so I'd like to use this as a moment to show why you don't maybe talk as much, is because this is bearing weight on you. So we see you with like one personality here, and then moving forward, he actually talks via gifs and memes most of the time.
Ah,
He'll
that's
get
the way I
like,
communicate in real life.
well, we play on Discord, so
Oh, that's great.
we all talk quite a bit. And he said, well, the only way to get a word in with you guys is to send a gif into the Discord. So um, in most of the next few books, and you'll even see it in book 5, when you see the whole team, it's usually cutting Bones off at the head. Um, so he's like the Snoopy's character because he's so big, you know. And I actually just finished drawing the page where he's mad because they put him outside to like market the coffee truck thing. Mind you, this guy didn't want to join in the first place. He's kind of just doing it because he feels this greater good will come from helping this team. And the first thing they do is they stick him outside with a giant board on his chest to go buy coffee because he's so tall. They're like, "Hey, you're in charge of marketing. Go stand there and get people to buy coffee." And he's in the group chat, and they're all talking and laughing and having a good time. And he's just like, "I immediately regret this decision." And there's like a meme that just pops up, you know. And so in that situation, I use the coffee truck. You know, they're talking about the coffee truck and Ninja Turtles, and he's like, "I hate this. This is dumb." So they asked me, like, can you make that work? Can you make it to where his communication is mainly like he is in real life? And I was like, yeah, I can do it moving forward, but in this first book he has to have dialogue because
So funny.
he's the only character that would make sense to know some of this information.
Got it.
And we were fine with it, and I was like, cool, so this thing happens to your character, and then you're depressed and you don't talk anymore, and you get angry and send memes. And he's like, okay, I'm cool with it.
That's actually a good way. Has it been difficult to like pivot to that to where it's now somehow you're figuring out how to have him talk through memes and gifs?
I have to draw a lot of cell phones. But it's fine because we can also say the dialogue without it, or have it like you can express what the meme is and laugh without even showing it. If I establish that that's his way of talking in another shot, I can have a character holding a phone and like mid conversation, like talking and then going, "Oh, Bones, that's really funny," and you don't know it's there, but everyone can laugh at what's there. It kind of gives that like moment for the reader.
Mhm.
We do a lot of insert jokes. Okay. So once I establish that he speaks in memes, my idea is like, oh my God, I can't believe you just used insert your favorite meme here. you know. So I want to play on some of that stuff, like the tongue-in-cheek, the very um, tonal comedy, like not just visual all the time,
Mhm.
because that gives the reader a moment to be like, oh, this would have been a better meme. So, okay, cool. If you
Got it.
can picture a meme there that you like, put it, and there you go. And because we did that in book 4, we had insert song. That was uh, that was a stroke of accidental genius that we still read and laugh at right now. We took a vacation. 4 of us went to an island, like right off the coast of South Carolina, Keo Island.
Oh,
We
okay.
went there for like a week in August, and it's the first time we were taking like a group vacation. And we're down there looking. This was right after I got the trade paperback, and we're looking through, and we get to that insert song piece, and we were just dying. No alcohol involved yet, and we were just dying laughing. Um,
It's always good when you can laugh at your joke without the alcohol influencing it. Like
yep.
it's a natural laugh, you know, it's always a good sign.
Yeah, we had a blast. That was probably one of my favorite like writing moments because we were listening to the audio recording, and in the audio recording, there's just this piece where they want to put their battle music on, so they're trying to figure out what song they're playing on the radio, and they keep they keep arguing. So when we got to the writing of it, Brad chose, I can't even think off the top of my head. Um, I mean, I have it right. I have the book over here. Let me just grab the book.
Yeah, that's awesome though.
Yeah. I'm
Have
not.
the same personality, but I'm sure it's like so different that they had different songs that they wanted to pick for it.
Oh yeah, it was. I can't think of his name. He was like a '90s. Every '90s action movie had his songs. Um,
Action movies. I'm trying to even think of 90s action movies.
I have so many books around. They're all book 5 right now. Um, yeah,
You have packs, piles and piles of book 5.
yeah, I do. I really because I just had to fulfill that one, and so I have a couple retail stores that place orders, so I was shipping them
Oh, nice.
out. Not Peter Jackson. God, I can't think of the name. Anyway, so they're talking about this artist, and they're like, pick your favorite, So I just put insert your favorite song here, and then that turned into, oh God, this is the best song. Insert song is the best song ever written, and then Spectre, the youngest guy in the group, was like, I don't even know what insert song is, and he's like, it's the biggest like music stroke of musical genius ever written, like, and
Oh,
so it's just like
no.
one page, and it's just like insert song, insert, and I was like, it just made us die laughing, and it was
Mhm.
an accident because I just put insert song there because even when we went to writing, we couldn't figure out what song we wanted to play, and by the time we finished writing the book and putting all the dialogue in, insert song was still there. And we were reading through and it caught us off guard because we totally forgot. And so we're like, okay. And everyone's reading their lines and we're going back and forth just to see how the flow of the book is. And we hit insert song is the best. I was like, oh my God, that's freaking hilarious.
Insert song.
And so we did the audiobook for that one too. And Brad, every time it came to I was like, so every time it says insert song, I want you to say it the same way. So he says insert song. So it's like one person talking, and then all of a sudden it goes insert song. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, those are the things that I really appreciate about our style
Yeah.
is we can have like in book 5 there's very serious dark moments, but you can have these comedic moments 5 seconds later, and it's not like very jarring.
Mhm.
I've watched shows and movies recently where they're funny, but they don't need to be, and the comedy isn't organic.
Yeah, it
So,
feels forced.
right, especially when you have like I bring up Thor only because it's a very like divided, and I haven't seen the new one, so I'm not talking about that. But even the one before it, I enjoyed it. Like Ragnarok was fun the first time I watched it because it was
Mm.
very different than what
Yeah.
I had seen. And then the more I watched it, the more I was like, we're
Do they
getting a
need
lot of
to do that?
comedy from Guardians, and this isn't a Guardians movie.
Mhm.
And like Star Wars, okay, so The Last Jedi, I won't even go into the horrendous storytelling they use in that. And that's a different live all by itself. But yeah, if you want to hear my opinions on that, you can ask me. I'll
Oh, I am going to invite you back just for that.
Um, I all right. So just so you know, ever since that movie came out, Brad and I have a thing where we've agreed that every conversation we have does end on that because we hate it so much. Somehow our conversations always de-evolve into our hatred for The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi.
That's how much I hate that movie.
Well,
But
now I'm gonna have you and Brad on here
oh god, he
just
will
to talk
spend
about
three
it,
hours of your life telling you how bad
and
she
that's
is in that
fine.
movie.
I'm here
Um,
for it.
but the thing that really threw me, there was a few, and they were like consecutive bad moments in the very first 10 minutes. And the first one was the phone call where the X-Wing's right there. We have God knows how many movies, TV shows, cartoons with long-range communications that never fail. Yet you're like maybe 100 yards away from this ship, and you're
So,
like, can you hear me now? I was like, is this Guardians of the Galaxy? Because that's comedy that I would expect
yeah, from
from
Guardians.
that.
Yeah.
Mainly because the main character grew up he was a kid in that time period. That's comedy that he would have known,
Mhm.
right? So Chris Pratt's character fits him because he's stuck in that
Yeah.
age, right? So it makes sense. But a well-known tactical commander in the rebel fleet isn't going to fly right up to the ship and be like playing a phone game with them,
Yeah.
like that was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen. And it was comedy that didn't need to be comedy. Was it a funny moment for someone who doesn't know Star Wars? Of course it was.
Yeah.
But you don't need the same comedy in all of your areas. And I think that um, one thing we do well, and I think it's just because it's so natural, is we have these funny moments and then
Mhm.
we have these serious, impactful moments. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a suicide at the end of book 5, and it arguably assisted suicide if you really look into it. Like,
Yeah.
um,
But
and that was I asked first. I was like, "Are we keeping this? Because that's dark." And they're like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
but we have a lot of." And their argument for that was because I thought of other ways of accomplishing that without showing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they were like, "No, that really accomplishes it well and shows that we're not always going to be this fun,
Yeah.
comedy book. There are serious moments because our story is, especially as the story grows, there is a more deep-seated darkness in the world than anybody realizes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So inserting these smaller dark moments here and there prepares those readers for when we take that darker turn later on. It doesn't come so abrupt. It's like, oh well, they've had one guy get shot in the head, and they have had another guy, like they fought zombies. They've, like, these darker things exist and they've experienced them. So it's not like, hey, funny moments all the time, then all of a sudden everyone's serious and sad. It's like
Yeah.
it's there.
And
And
that's
that's
what
like,
I do like about your storytelling, and the story itself, it just flows well. It doesn't none of it feels forced. Like, even the dark moments don't feel forced because sometimes, a lot of to the opposite of throwing in a joke just for a joke's sake, sometimes they throw in these wow factors of darkness and sadness
mhm,
just for the wow effect, and it never felt like that with your story. It felt flowy, like natural, just progression of the story. So that's one of the things that I appreciate, like reading it. It's just, you
thank you.
know, you don't go, oh, did they really need to put that in there? No, it makes sense. You know what I mean? So I like that about it. And that again, that just goes to the talent of the writing behind it all, that it's not
Having
forced.
three main people. So somebody recently on one of the shows I was on brought up how in my credits page there's no writer. It's story, and that's because we don't really write. It's not like we have this writing room where we sit down and we go, what happens here, what happens here. The way the story unfolds is I walk in and I say, okay, this is a situation, what do you do? And everyone starts giving me what they want to do. And so it's more of an organic story than a written story. And so I don't like using the term writing. Um, we had these different creative minds all coming together to create a story. And I love the fact that I can call them up and say, hey, what would you do here? Um, and I keep during the actual storyboarding and art process, like the flow of the book, I keep it to three people. I have Brad is big filter and Terrell is little filter. And so it has to go through little filter and big filter before it can make it to the story. And then at the very end, I'll host a Discord session. And some of the guys, they can't make it, and that's fine. I'll give them the book later, and if they want to make any adjustments, they can.
Mhm.
But I want everything that their character says to come from their mouth, or be their dialogue,
Mhm.
not Chris made me say this.
Yeah, because also they know their character, you know what I mean? They're the ones playing it, and I think that's what separates this style of your like your comics from others, because this is coming from a D&D campaign, whereas other comics, and it's no disrespect to other comic book
Oh
writers,
no, not
because
at all.
I love them all, but it is just different because it's not just you or one other writer, it's you and your campaign crew, you know what I mean? And you give them that moment of, what would your character do? What would your character say? Because again, they know their character.
Mhm.
And I think that adds on to the flow of it all, that they know, no, my character wouldn't say this, like my character, and it's not you having to come up with all of it on your own, you know? So I think that that adds on to it too. I know you don't like to call them writers, but in essence, in a way,
In a
they
way,
they are,
I
but they're story, tellers, I guess, at this point.
at this point they're all writers because we've done so many and we've made the correct edits and things. Clearly the cat, I can't call it my cat and say what would you say here. So most of
Yeah,
the
that's a
cat
little
dialogue is actually all the cat dialogue is me and Brad. Um, if I can't figure out a rhyme, I just tell like so how the during the actual writing process, the artwork always comes first.
mhm.
It's actually kind of reminiscent of the old Stanley days where he'd say, "Hey, I have this idea for a story," and he'd give them the rough idea, and they would just do the artwork, and at the very end, he'd go in and fill the dialogue in.
Oh, okay.
Um, Similar to that style, except we have a flow, like we know where this is going. It's not there's no loose storytelling involved. It's all set.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't want to have daily sessions for writing a page because we're all adults, we have jobs, some of us work 12-hour 14-hour shifts. I don't have the ability to ask them week in week out, can you write this page with me? So I just send them the pages when it's done, they tell me if I need to fix anything, move on. When it's all done, I put it into a PDF and we go into Discord. We all have a drive file open on the computer, and we literally we work on a live document between us, and we scroll on the screen. I have the comic, on the screen, and we just scroll page to page,
Wow.
and we go panel by panel. When we get to the cat, if we don't have anything that he can say right then and there, I say, Brad, you work on this, we'll go forward. Because I have the recording and I try to, before I call them in, I'll have the recording done and I'll dictate what the recording says. That way we
Oh,
have a
okay.
blueprint of where that dialogue is going already.
Mhm.
And we can tighten it up, make some of it a little bit better because this is, seat of our pants role play. It's
Yeah.
not like we get to sit there and think for 5 minutes what we're going to say. So we go through and clean up some of that. And then there was like one book where Brad was on the C.R.I.T piece for about 5-10 minutes. And then he finally gets to where we're at and he goes, oh, I'm at another C.R.I.T piece. um, I love the cat stuff, but he rhymes just strictly to annoy the crap out of Austin. And so he does really lean into like trying to annoy Austin. And now we have 3 talking animals in the book because we introduced the owl and the chameleon in the end of book 5. And now so the chameleon is this. He's like if you take the turtle from Finding Nemo
Okay.
and make him very timid, because chameleons by nature are very timid animals.
True. Yeah.
So I wanted to make him like a very shy toker. So he sounds really high all the time, but he's really shy and timid. So it's like you can scare him easily.
That is
Um,
fantastic.
and the owl is this very pompous prick of an owl and he's a British accent.
As most
Uh,
owls are.
yes, his name's Archimedes, mainly because of uh, there was Brad was like, yeah, Archimedes is such a British owl name, and I was like, well, that's because it is a British owl from Sword in the Stone, and there's hidden meaning to the name. So much later, you'll kind of piece. Some people will piece it together.
Yeah.
It was funny actually to remind somebody asked me, does Marvel really exist in your universe? Because I see you mentioned Marvel, but the owner of Technetics' name is Sebastian Shaw, who is a Marvel character.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, he is. But did you know he was also the first actor to play Darth Vader? And he was like, no.
Oh,
And I
did
was
not
like,
know that
yes.
either.
So that's where I draw Sebastian Shaw from. And there is a reason I use that Sebastian Shaw, which, it's more of an underlying thing for me. And when that gets divulged, it'd be like, oh, yeah, I named him this because of this. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense now.
Wow. Now,
Whereas
is that known in the comic itself, or is that something that we have to like dig
no,
into?
it'll be like divulged much, much later in the story.
Okay.
But so we have all these different like subtle hints to things, because I like the idea of writing comfortably.
Mhm.
If I introduce everything as something new, something off the wall that just doesn't make sense to people, it's hard to get those readers to grasp your story. But if I give little subtle things that people can say, oh, I know that, and I can relate to that. Like we
Mm.
mentioned Mass Effect, we mentioned Star Wars, we mentioned tons of pop culture references.
Yeah.
And, being so self-aware allows people to have that common ground to relate to it and go, oh yeah, that I hated The Last Jedi too. So we have a good 90% of people that saw that movie will relate to it.
Yeah.
But actually, yeah. So to your point about the storytelling, I wanted to mention this one thing that I do actually physically go for every time we write the book is it going to be Last Jedi? If I read it, do I feel like I just watched that movie? And it's a rule, because I actually hate that movie so much that if I feel any which way that things come out of left field with no explanation, or no future explanation.
Mhm.
There's a lot of dead ends in that movie, and there's a lot of pointless storytelling.
Mhm.
I mean, there's an entire story arc that if you take it out, it has no bearing on the main story. And I'm not, for all those of you that like it, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that there's a lot of story elements in there that you can use as learning examples when making your own.
Mhm.
If you can take an entire arc out and it has no bearing on the reader's end game of the book, then you don't need it.
Yeah.
And so I think about things like that. I think about the jarring comedy pieces, and then some of the out of left field things that just happen, like Leia avoiding death by flying in the middle of space, which is actually the number one reason I hate the movie, because huge Star Wars fan, absolutely grew up on it. I have an emotional connection to it because some of the hardest times in my life was when I was a little kid. I used to come home from school at 4 and 5 years old with nobody in the house, and I would play Star Wars. It would keep me company because I had to cook at 4 and 5 years old. I had to take care of my dog, and so it was like my babysitter. Okay.
Yeah.
So that in the original He-Man movie, which I will take to my death, is amazing. But when you have this iconic character and she passed away, we knew it when we walked in the theater that she had passed away. And so when she was floating out into space, I won't lie, I choked up, because I was like, that's beautiful. I don't care about your gravity bombs in the middle of space that don't make sense. I don't care about your phone call now. You just gave me the best send-off ever, because I was introduced to Leia in space.
Mm-hmm.
She's now going to die in space.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is freaking beautiful. I'm good. And then she gets sucked back in, and all those emotions turn into anger. And I threw my popcorn. I'm like, F this movie. I'm done. I'm walking out. And Brad was sitting next to me. He was almost there too. He's like, all right, well, now we're in for the ride. Let's see how bad this is.
Yeah.
We were both like sitting there with the same feeling, like, okay, this just won me over because that's a great death scene. And that's the best way to send that character off. And then he just yanked it out from under me. And so if there's ever a moment like that in a book where I feel like I'm yanking something out from under the reader and making them feel any which way, we'll cut it. Yeah, I get mad.
I'm because I want to go back to like the Star Wars, but we're here to talk about Crit. I'm telling you, I'm gonna have you back just so we could talk about Star Wars.
I'm up for it anytime.
Okay, good. Because I really do want to. I'm like, oh my god, this is like such good. But we're here to talk about Crit. We're here to talk about your game beta too. Like the game, it's in beta, right? Is that okay?
So originally, before the comic, I was gonna do the game. So I had, I mean, at this point, probably close to 600 hours into the game beta.
Wow.
There's balancing character class creations and the, modern weapons, modern equipment, all these things, and how they're balanced in the game. Again, we actually just found, I think I released the first 5 levels because the first 5 levels of every character are good.
Okay.
Now, you're playing superheroes. So those of you that play D&D, you're getting powerhouses out the gate. They're meant to be put into situations that require a little bit more of a challenge rating for your enemies, because they should exist in worlds where things are super, not fighting goblins and things like that all the time. And if you're fighting a goblin, you need to have them fight like a whole like mess of them because strength in numbers. We'll just say that. But so originally I was going to release the game, and then a lot of people don't know this either. I taught myself how to draw to do the comic. I had never drawn any comic book art. Most of my stuff was like stick figures and like stupid art. So I started drawing, and that took off. I feel like the artwork now, I've been told many times, is really good. So I'll take that for what it is. I appreciate that. I put a lot of work into it.
I was going to say, was it tutorials? Was it like classes? Was it a little bit of everything?
Well, my wife is a phenomenal artist, and she taught me quite a bit. Before I even released book 1, I probably had 50 hours into training classes online.
Wow.
Because I was actually unemployed when I first started doing it, and I just really wanted to learn how to draw. It was like, if I'm going to make a comic book, take a couple classes. And so I bought a couple classes online, learned some basics. YouTube shows are the greatest, there's always this free information everywhere. And I just started drawing all the time, got the comic book done. And then it kind of became this thing. And so we were like, well, hey, instead of rushing this game into development, let's just do the comic book. And where the comic book ends is when we'll release the game. So instead of having this game with a kind of a comic book to go with it, you have the comic book that leads into the game. So what we'll do is when everything's done after 42 books, you'll be left with this new world. Okay, so the world as we know it right now is what Crit is in. A very bad event happens that essentially merges our world with a typical Dungeons and Dragons world.
Okay.
So you get, Earth with orcs and goblins and these different crazy things. And then that way you can tell your own story within the Crit universe, and everything's explained why you can have a modern setting with an orc or, a big giant, lizard monster, or these things that you want to have happen. And plus you can still use traditional 5e, books to go along with it. So you don't have to play this whole new game. It just kind of coincides. It's more of a world setting than a new game. So that way too, when we're all done, I want to have on our website a place for people to submit their campaigns to see if they can. And this goes back into my love for Star Wars. Back in the 90s, all the books I read were ideas that somebody pitched to George Lucas, or that he would have an idea and he'd find a writer for, there's all these different things. But I'd love to have our own little sandbox for people to say, hey, we created this game and here's our game. in your universe, this is what's going on, and maybe we can do something with that, or maybe we can make it canon,
That's
um,
cool.
something like that, to where people can interact with our world and maybe make a bigger difference on the actual world of Crit.
Okay.
So, because we're still going to have, after this, I'm taking same world, same everything, but we're going to tell like some space stories. And so Crit is building this different world and this different universe that'll eventually be able to tell more stories in. Um, you know, that's the goal. And
Okay.
when we release the game, it'll be thousands of hours put into it. So you'll get like a very
Yeah.
refined, element.
Because even the beta, like you sent the beta, and I was like, wow, this is like so detailed. And I like had to reread like the caption. I'm like, this is still considered beta. Like it's so
Yeah.
like crazy, like well done, detailed, crazy in a good way. Detailed. Like it was just like, this is not like the finished like thing itself. So
No, I put about 80 hours into that too, just the design. Like I hand drew most of the panel work and everything.
that's insane. Like it is so well done. And like I said, I had to reread. I'm like, beta? Like, are you sure this is still beta? Like this looks fun to me. Like it's ready to go.
Appreciate
Uh,
that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
did. I put a ton of work in that.
I
Well,
can tell.
something
Yeah.
about having my own game book was important to me, and I thought I had one laying over here. I've been trying to keep everything next to me because I've been doing so many shows for the next Kickstarter. Um, but yeah, having my own game book was like probably more fun for me than having a comic book.
Really?
A lot of people ask me, what's my favorite part of making the book? And now it's having my own game book and having my own collector cards, because I have a whole ton of comic books, and I got into comic books because of cards.
Yeah.
Cards were cheaper for me, and I was really poor growing up, so I couldn't buy comic books all the time. But I could go back and buy a pack of 10 cards and trade with my friends. Um, I loved collector cards when I was a kid. So
Yeah.
we have 2 sets out now. We have 18 cards that we've
Wow.
released. Next book, I'll release 4 more, or maybe 5, depending on where we land with the Kickstarter.
Mm.
Um, and I want to continue that trend of like collector cards and cool little goodies.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, actually, so next Kickstarter, because Crit creates their own coffee and energy drink brands, I'm releasing the Spectre's After Death energy drink as a reward in the Kickstarter. Those
Good.
should be here in about 2 weeks, so I'll have them for the cons. So yeah, so
Save me one. I'm gonna buy one.
I will. You'll have them.
Thank you.
I wanted to bring them up and really get some headway behind those. So I got 8 cases coming. Um,
Nice.
yeah, I actually got in. The minimum order now is 20, and because I placed my order before, I started the order before September 1st. They honored the 8 case minimum for me.
Nice.
But
Nice.
yeah, I'm really excited because I'm a caffeine addict. So having
Yeah.
like an energy drink now, you know.
Me too. I love a good coffee. I love a good energy drink. I try not to drink the energy drinks as much as I used to because,
Mhm.
age and whatnot. But I still, whenever I can, energy drink. I like it. Good
Oh yeah,
energy.
we keep our fridge stocked with them, and I was like, well, cool. Now I get to have my own in there.
Yeah, that's
Um,
so cool though.
yeah, people ask me like, so where do you come up with these ideas for all this stuff that you had in your Kickstarter? And I'm
Yeah.
like, if I want it, I just put my brand name on it. I
And that's
find a way to put my brand on it.
and like that's such a like genius thing to say just in general. Like if you want it, go and make it. Like, you know what I mean? It might seem difficult, but once you do the research, I'm pretty sure it's not that difficult, you know?
In the age we live in, there's so much accessibility for things that we want. Now, there's a cost involved.
Of
That's the hard
course.
part, is especially like figures and these things that take quite a bit of detail to create. But with the right research, you can find something affordable. You don't have to, and especially with the indie community, you don't have to come out the gate with a Marvel level of quality on everything,
Mhm.
because you're still in house, you're still doing everything on a credit card budget, and you've got to figure that in. But if you
Yeah.
can create something that has a good quality, again, doesn't have to be, my McFarlane level figures that I have sitting next to me. It doesn't have to be like that level. But if you give something that's still good quality to
Mhm.
your backers, you'll get them back. And the more times you do that, the better you can make the next product.
Yeah,
So we went
exactly.
from the first here. So this was the first figure we did. This was Boulder.
Oh, wow.
You know, it came out very good,
Let
and
me
that one did
zoom
well.
in.
So I'll show this one again since I'm on
Yeah.
Boulder. So this is Boulder,
Oh,
and
that's so
we
cool.
got a really good 3D render.
Is
Really
he
good.
paintable?
Yeah, completely paintable. I don't like painting the miniatures, so I left them gray because it seems like I'm in a lot of collector communities, and they like the flat gray so they can paint them.
Mhm.
And so the next one we did was Caliber, and
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, so we're going to continue with those. I've got to find a new designer. The last designer, I wound up $300 over budget on him.
Ooh.
But I promised it to people, so I wasn't gonna,
Yeah, yeah.
not get it done. It just took a lot longer than expected. I started that design in February, and I didn't get a final product until July,
Oh,
and
wow.
they have a 45-day turnaround.
Ooh.
I had to
Oh.
leave. Yeah, I don't do this ever. I literally had to go onto their social media posts, like their advertisement posts, and leave this long, like,
Oh, yeah.
detail of communication and screen. I have screenshots on their posts. Like,
Sometimes you
I've
have to,
written you 10
unfortunately.
emails. I've
Yeah.
paid you $200. Where's my design? And even when they sent me the final thing, they're supposed to send me a 3D design like that I can print, and they didn't do that. I had to take the broken render they sent me because originally after like 90 days, they sent me something that was completely unusable.
Oh,
I gave
no.
that to another 3D designer that I know, and he was able to spend 2 weeks fixing it. And then he had to drop $100 into it. And I didn't even really know him. I just knew him off of forums. So we
Yeah.
talked a few times, and he had given me some pointers on some 3D printing. And I was like, hey, you seem to know what you're doing. Can you fix this? And he was like, well, it'll take a little time, but I'll get it done. And yeah, so when I get some extra money, I'm going to throw that guy $100. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's been nuts with the amount of stuff I've had to go through just to get my own figurines.
Well, it's a learning process. I know that. It's all, it's one of those like hit or miss, especially when you're starting off and you're trying to do something new or different that you're not used to. It's definitely one of those, let's try this. Because Lord knows I've tried things and I've lost money because I've tried things. And I'm like, okay, well, I learned that learned that one the hard way type of thing. Um Owning your own business and trying to get your own things out there, it's definitely, a tough task, but it can be done, it's not that it can't be done, it can, but sometimes you hit those moments that you're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
there goes $300." I'm yeah. So, I feel
it can
that
be
pain.
tough.
Yeah.
But luckily, we have these backers that continue to come back, book after book. And our first Kickstarter failed, but that wasn't because we didn't make enough money to do it. It was because I didn't know what funding goals we needed. I had no
Oh,
idea what a Kickstarter was. I had never done anything. I read that 1,500 was the good mark, and so I put the goal at 1,500. We raised a good little over 700.
okay.
We really only needed about 500. So
Oh.
yeah, a friend of mine who's very independently wealthy messaged me after it failed and was like, "What are you trying to do?" And I was like, "I just want to make a comic book." And he goes, "Well, whatever you do, you usually do well. So here, what do you need?" And he just sent it to me.
Aw.
Um, and he didn't even want the book. He's like, "I don't really read comic books." He's like, you know,
Just take my money. Just
that's exactly what he said. He
that's
was.
amazing.
I sent
I
it
need a
to him,
friend
and he
like
was
that
like, "Thanks. This is cool. I probably should give him like some credit somewhere." Um,
somewhere.
yeah, his name's Steve.
Fine print.
I met him doing trade shows at work. We just wound up sitting next to each other one day, and we got along.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and I just was blessed to have been sitting in the right spot at the right time and met him.
Yeah.
It was like 10 years later, he sends me $500 and says, "Hey, do we need to do?"
Oh.
And I actually gave everybody that backed that Kickstarter, even though it failed and we didn't collect the money. I didn't feel right messaging them again and asking them to send me money via PayPal. It just didn't seem right
Mhm.
because I hadn't earned that from them, if that makes
Okay.
sense. So I sent everybody a free book.
Aw.
Yeah. I was like, this guy paid for it. Here, you can thank him. And most of those people have come back every book. So it was like 30 something people, and they've come back for a good majority of them have come back book after book, which is really cool.
That's
That's
awesome.
one thing I'm really proud of right there, actually, is
Your community, they show up for you. When you
yeah.
take care of your community, they show up for you always.
Yeah,
Um,
like when I'm late on something, I always throw extras in. Like this last book, um, the printer was late. Everybody was late, and I get it. We're facing that with everything.
mhm.
I tried to like assume that in advance and put a buffer in there, but my colorist was late, and then my printer was late, and then I had like these two back-to-back vacations where I work sent me to Florida for a week for training, and then we had a week-long vacation right after that. So I actually had the books sent to me while I was in Florida, so I could prep them. And literally, I had everything packaged and ready to go. We had a day between like Florida and South Carolina, so I came back for one day and I packaged everything else in that. Like literally, got up at 8 o'clock in the morning and was packaging till 5 in the evening and
Oh,
dropped everything
wow.
off at the post office when we were getting ready to go to the beach.
Wow.
So I left the international orders because those I wanted to make sure I had everything done right. So
Mhm.
like I think 10 international that need to go out. So I messaged all them and said, "Hey, yours will be there. I just want to make sure it's done right, so it's get held up in customs." And
Yeah.
shipped everybody their books, and we fulfilled. I was like, "Thank God," because I was really waiting to announce the next Kickstarter until um, people had gotten their books, and I really wanted to announce in the beginning of August. I had to announce at the end. Not a big deal. We're still coming out in October.
Yeah.
Um, but
Speaking of October, that's your next Kickstarter, right? October 12th.
well, yep.
Do you already know the rewards and everything for that, or do we have
Oh
to,
yeah, I've got everything built.
can we get,
Everything's
like, a
done.
sneak
Done.
peek as to what some of the rewards, not all of them, like, just a
Yeah,
few?
yeah. So we've got the energy drinks. I'm trying to go back to basics on this. I went really big on the last Kickstarter and went in the hole a little bit. Um, and so I've got 4 covers. I've got 2 that are going to be foil. That's kind of like my thing now. I always do 2 foil. I do 1 funny cover. This one you kind of get 2. One of the foils is actually kind of funny. It's the theme. I had Matthew Weldon. I sent him this idea of all of the guys. There's a big, because they fight a big giant robot in the book.
Mhm.
They're fighting the big giant robot, but you've seen Ghostbusters with the Ghostbuster packs. Instead of that, it's coffee. They're shooting coffee out of these little coffee cannons on their back,
That's awesome.
and that's 1 cover, which I should have that this weekend to go to colors. And I've already talked to the colorist. He's good to have that. He said it shouldn't take more than a few days.
Okay.
So I'll have that this week to show. I've got 2 other covers. I got the standard cover by Mo, which I put up on my Instagram, and then Lewis, Draw, Erase, Repeat. He did another cover, very high detailed. So there's 3 covers with giant robots, and then there's a D&D themed cover coming from Robert Nix. So that one, he sent me the sketch. Robert's a very busy person, so I'm hoping I have this by launch to show at least the sketch from it.
Okay.
Trying to play catch up right now. But the funny cover is Samedi playing Dungeons and Dragons, and the guys are on the board. So it's like they're mini people,
Oh,
and
that's
Samedi's
so
playing Dungeons
cool.
and Dragons with little miniatures attacking them.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Yes. So that will get its own tier as well. You'll be able to get all the covers by themselves.
Okay.
Um, I'm going to have a D&D tier where I bring back the book, the beta. You get the beta. You get 5 dungeon D&D sessions with myself and Brad and one other guy if they want to partake. So we're going to DM a session, 5 sessions for everybody.
Oh, wow.
So that'll take some, coordinating.
Mhm.
And so we'll get the days and times set for that to happen. But you'll also get a custom die roll, like a crit die rolling tray. So we've got that in there, and that's
Oh,
going to be
that's
a
so
big tier, just because of the sheer amount of time that you're going to get. 4-hour sessions,
yeah.
4-hour sessions. That's 25 hours of time, and then you get the content as well, and you'll get the D&D cover. So we've
That's
got
so
that. I've got, you know, your standard tiers. You've got books and books and books and posters and prints and things like that.
stickers.
Stickers. I always do stickers. They're like
They're my
a
favorite thing. Like I have
dude.
literally, it's so embarrassing, but I have like a stack of, of stickers from
Yeah.
like
You can't have
Kickstarters
a
and
Kickstarter and not have stickers.
yeah.
We've got T-shirts because again, you can't not have a T-shirt, and then the energy drinks, and I'm doing a retail tier as well. So any of the retail partners that want to get in with not just my books, but also all the SSB books, they can do that
Oh
at
wow.
wholesale price. So they can, you know, get in and
Oh,
start,
that's
you
cool.
know, getting in on the SSB that way. My printer has given me a pretty good deal for our wholesale stuff. So that'll be good. And I feel like there's another one that nope, I think that's everything that I can think of off the top of my head.
That's so
Big
cool.
thing though, Dan Price from Bigfoot Knows Karate and
Mhm.
myself are launching the same day, and we're doing a joint launch party. So we both picked our days independently, and he posted his, and I was like, "Hey, so I'm launching the same day, and I can't launch any other day because of
Yeah.
my work schedule. Um, really, like the end of October for me is when I start to gear up." And so I work in taxes. So I've got to start prepping my locations and getting people hired.
Hmm.
And I was like, if I wait till November, I won't have time to promote or do anything because I'll be
Yeah.
working. And even October, I'm playing a concert October 8th. My wife and I are in a band. So we have a concert October 8th. And as a reunion show, it's already sold out. That's going to be chaotic.
Nice.
Yeah, it's in Greensboro. It's like the First and Flight Fest. It's like this huge metal fest from the early 2000s.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, my band was signed at that point in time, so we're we're on that. And my
That's
singer
cool.
dipped out on us, so my wife is doing vocals.
Nice, nice. Is there anything she can't do? Like I'm just like convinced she does everything
She
at this
does.
point.
She is amazing. Yeah, that's why we're called Team Sail Off, is because we usually do everything together. Um, we're a perfect little group. Um, so we have that August 8th. We have a concert. We have one weekend off with nothing, and then I've got Queen City Con, Baltimore Con, and then Halloween. And so I
Mhm.
was like, if I don't do in October, I'm not doing it,
Yeah.
because then I'm looking at April, May for my next availability because I'm in tax season
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm working from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. So Dan was like, "Yeah, that's cool. We'll do a joint." And we talked to Dennis. Dennis is doing a piece for us, a print. And so everyone that backs both
Nice.
Kickstarters,
That's
um, what we're going to do is make each other, you know, give each other updates on our Kickstarters. And that way, if I see someone back it, that, you know, hey, did this person back? So we can figure out who the day one backers are. Um, so we know who gets that print. And we're going to
that's
do it
so
as an add-on piece at the end, so you can add it to your cart. It'll be a zero price item, just, you know, cross promotion.
mhm.
And that way I know when I go to fulfill, I can go, hey, this person has the cross promo piece in. Did they back you? And he'll say yes. And then I can send
That's so
them.
cool. That's
Yeah.
smart though, working together and um three the three of you are like the trifecta of greatness. So I am a huge fan of Dan's. I became a huge fan of Dennis because we met at Heroes Con and you know I'm a huge fan of your wives
Yeah.
and you by association. Like
That's usually how it goes. They like her, and I just get the leftovers. Like, oh, yeah, you're cool
I'm
too.
just kidding. You're great too.
No, I won't
So
lie.
that's pretty cool.
So my assistant at work, she loves her too. My assistant's amazing. And recently we were just talking. I was like, you know, there's some days I just can't people. Like I just can't. No matter how hard I try,
Yeah.
because I have 5,000 things going on at any given time, and I have my own personality quirks. And there are days like I can be in a circle of people and they can be talking to me, and I just won't. I'm just put my head down. You don't get my attention. I'm done with this. Like I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And that's why I have her, because she knows when I'm in those moods,
She just
and
peoples for
she just
you.
takes over. And she's great. Balances my personality perfectly. and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have any friends left if it wasn't for her.
She is great. She is great. Like I had such a pleasure meeting her, and then we stayed in touch through social media. We chat every now and again, and we're both excited to see each other at Baltimore. So I probably won't be hanging out with you guys. I'll just be hanging
Perfectly
out with her.
fine. I'm glad that she has somebody in the community because she's a photographer and she has her own group there, and I don't know a lot of those people, so it can be uncomfortable sometimes when I'm in that setting. And then we're both very involved in each other's lives, so it's not like I can just go to a con and come home and tell her, oh yeah, it was fun. She wants to be there. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
knowing that she gets to drive 10 hours to a con with me and actually be around someone she wants to see instead of just hanging out with the guys all weekend, that's really cool for her. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that
We had that discussion. I was like, girl, I'm not out because she was like, oh my God, you're gonna be there. I'm like, yeah, you're gonna be there too. She's like, yeah. And she's like, thank goodness I won't be surrounded by the guys. I was like, girl, it'll just be you and me. We're gonna make them so jealous of our friendship. We're just gonna go out and drink and just make them jealous. She's like, yes, please. So we're both super excited
that's awesome.
to be hanging out at Baltimore. I mean, she's amazing. I mean, I don't have to tell you, I'm telling the audience. She really
Yeah,
is amazing. And her photography is phenomenal. Like it is next
yeah,
level
she
stuff.
is.
So it's definitely the whole family is actually very talented, which was like took me aback. I'm like the whole crew is talented over there. So
It
I
is
think
kind of
that's super
weird, not
cool.
gonna lie, being in this house because we're all musically inclined, we're all artistically inclined, and I think what's best about this family, my daughter included, is we all just love to be able to do our own thing, and
Hmm.
then we come together and we'll watch TV or we'll talk about our day, we'll do something as a family for a little bit, and then we're like, cool, we're gonna do our own thing. Like my kid sits in her room, she's either drawing, doing something with music, and she's ridiculous. She can pick up anything and just go, oh, okay. She picked up violin last week and then came home. Day
Oh,
one was like, oh
really?
yeah, I know how to play this song on violin. And I'm like,
Oh my
what?
gosh. All I saw was
Yeah.
her artwork. Her art, your daughter's artwork is already
Oh,
like it was
it's
blowing me away. Like I was getting emotional. Like this is our future. Like the comic books are in good hands. Like she's great. But
she's
I
like
did
our
not
own
know that she
story.
was
She has
also
her
doing
own.
music. So
And she has her own characters. She's got her own. She has an OC book. That's what she calls it.
mhm.
And she's got backstories for him, and she wants to do something with the story eventually. And she's like, I want to make sure it's right before I try to do anything with it. And I'm like, you're 12 years old. What 12-year-old thinks that way? And she's
Right?
been writing this since she was 8.
Oh,
So
that's amazing. That's
yeah,
definitely, but it goes to mom and pop because you guys are both in your own rights very talented. And you guys include her in your
yeah,
lives. It's not like no, I'm working. Do your own thing. No, you guys are very hands on in your creativity with each other and with her, and it's definitely showing through because I was flipping like, wait a second, you did this? No, your dad did this. She's like, no, I did this. Like, and I just love how humble and cute she was about it too. She's like, "Yeah, it was me."
yeah.
Well,
She's
pinch your cheeks type of thing, It's super awesome. Um, but
incredible.
October 12th, the Kickstarter kicks
Mhm.
off. Feel like I'm forgetting something. I think that's pretty much it.
Well, you can find the Kickstarter. The easiest way is just go to my website, homebrewedcomics.com. I actually created a link at the very top. There's a banner ad, but if you just click the link that says Kickstarter right there on the list of links, that'll take you right to the page. Right now, we're at 51 followers on it. My goal is to get to 75 before launch day. That's just a personal
Oh,
goal.
let's
Never hit it
go.
before. So if we can get 75 followers on there, I am going to be doing day one rewards.
Oh, wow.
So I'm keeping those close to my chest for the time being, just to hold on to them until later
I'll
on.
be looking. I'll be
Um,
looking for it.
yeah,
The link will also be in the description below as well too, so
yeah,
you guys can get that way. But go to his website because that way you guys can see all the other goodies and stuff he's got working and going.
yeah. We've got stuffed animals on there. That's a big. Oh, that's one thing I didn't talk about. I have the stuffed Samedi in every Kickstarter. Um, I actually just put in a reorder for that too because we've sold through the first 100. So that's
Nice.
really cool. He that stuffed animal pays for himself. Every con,
Somebody wants one.
I put him out on the front of the table, and there was this one con. I don't know why he went on the front of the table at the very beginning, and before I could finish the table, I had sold 3. I hadn't even set up yet. And I sold 3 of the cat, and I was like, okay, I guess he found his
Awesome.
spot.
Yeah, right at the front. because
So
I mean, who wouldn't want somebody like he's
I
so.
got him right here.
Oh yeah, please show.
So
Look at that.
yeah, this is the stuffed
It's so
Samedi.
cute.
Yeah, he got a little waggy tail,
Yeah,
and he looks so happy to see everybody. He drinks a lot. He's an avid
that's
drinker,
that's
and
really
so
why I like somebody because him and I could hang out, like we could drink, like it's
he,
great.
in book 4 they kind of go over his alcoholism problem.
It's not.
And to be honest, the reason I made him an alcoholic was because it can explain when Austin just forgets to use him. It's like, so where'd somebody go this time? Oh, he must be drinking, you know?
It's an easy way to explain it. I love
Yep.
it.
He just disappeared. Well, now I have the trifecta because the owl and the chameleon and Samedi together. I could have a book with just the 3 of them because I literally insert them as this comedic thing. So in book 6, I do want to say this real quick.
Yeah,
What to expect in that book is a bunch of chaos. And I was asked, how do you handle having 3 talking animals now? Because he can't use them all at the same time
hmm
per the rules of the game.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, well, they just feed off each other. You have one who's like a jerk. You have one that's just really funny and sarcastic. And then you have one who is very timid and shy. I was like, so kind of like our group as it is. And you put them alone. And like, there's a scene where they're yelling at Caliber in the book because Caliber did not want to work at a coffee shop. He's a cop by trade. He's a detective. Now all of a sudden he's got to sell coffee. And they have all these fancy flavors, and Caliber literally calls number 7 every time. That was an ongoing. He's like, number 7. I'm like, Brad, you just said number 7. He's like, yeah, everybody's number 7. I didn't sign up to do this. This isn't my business. Number 7. And then so I'm role playing with him, and I'm like, hey, I ordered a mochaccino. This is a black coffee. He's like, yeah, if you want those fancy things, go down the street. He's like, you got sugar, you got cream, you got black coffee. We're called Black Cat Coffee. Have a good day. And so they get mad at him because he's gonna give them bad Google reviews because he's given poor customer service.
that's amazing.
And he looks at them. He goes, "I don't think you have to worry about poor customer service when the health department's going to shut us down in 5 minutes." And he points over, and the chameleon's on top of a cup of coffee trying to put like coffee in the cup. And they're all the other 2 animals are laughing and pointing at him, and they're like, "This wasn't our idea." And he's like, "What? I'm just trying to help."
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God,
So
that's awesome.
that's what's in this book. And then they fight a giant robot and almost die. So
Wow.
because my goal is every book to kill him. So they're put in the position where I can try. And
Yes.
I always tell people it is D&D, so don't get attached to any characters
Mhm.
because there's a good possibility someone dies,
Yeah.
or 2 people, or I think at this point 3 people. Um, you know,
Yeah, D&D is a Game of Thrones kind of kind of a way,
yeah,
Someone don't get attached because
yep.
someone's gonna do something. So, in
Speaking
my
of
case,
D&D,
find the
I
trap
got a review
door,
for you.
so
Yeah, I'm gonna actually. I do need to run to go play D&D
okay,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Yep, we're gonna. I play a traditional campaign once a week with a few people.
Oh, nice.
Yep, I have a little character who, because I don't ever really get to play. So when I got to play, I became my character is this little halfling who joined wizard school, failed out of wizard school, so had to become an adventurer to pay all his school debt. Very real. And he's a terrible wizard because he failed out of wizard school. And so I actually made him a rogue that wants to be a wizard. So he's like pretending to
Oh
cast spells.
my
So when he
gosh.
stabs people, he says abracadabra and stabs them. And I put my knife on the end of
I love
a
it.
staff so it looks like a wand. And then somewhere in the story, my student loan debt was taken care of. So um, I was mad though because the guy that took care of it didn't give me money because he owed me like a lot of money.
Oh my God, it's too
And he's
funny.
like the king of this town, and I hated him. So I tried to turn his entire all of his constituents into vampires because I took vampirism. I let myself become a vampire, and I tried to infect the town with my vampirism so I could control them into killing him.
Oh
My
my
DM did
gosh.
not like that at all, and nixed that real quick and got rid of my vampirism
Aw.
and just made the entire city sick and said was like, you're literally pouring your blood into their food. I'm like, yeah, they're drinking my blood. They should become a vampire. Um, and I
Makes
think
sense.
now, yeah, we're like fighting off some ancient evil. And I have a talking knife, a butcher's knife, because I want to cook things. And
But it talks.
Yeah, I pretty much run around, just cause as much. I do follow the story. Like, I don't try to constantly derail this campaign. I just like to have motivations for my character. And so right now my motivation is becoming a king vampire, because I figured that if I can't infect an entire town with vampirism, if I at least take head of the king of vampires, I should be able to get my own, city of vampires. That's my
That's
goal.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I'm gonna shut it down. Let's get this together. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by and tuning in. Go click the link down below in the description, back the Kickstarter, follow it, get him to 75 followers, and then back the Kickstarter once it goes live. I appreciate you guys so, so much, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye, everyone. Yay.